Hey there riders, Motojourno Chris here today, and I thought I'd have a quick chat about three very popular beginner sports bikes for new riders. Now this kind of represents a big swathe in the options, and while I'm looking at specific models, there is competition for those models which is represented in a similar way. So if you want to know what I mean, first off you've got the Ninja 400, so that's the Kawasaki Ninja 400. Similar machines to that are Yamaha's R3 or the RC390, but I'm going to concentrate on this particular model. Now, it has a 785mm seat height, which is a really important feature for most new riders because you need an easy reach to the ground. It builds confidence and just makes it a much easier learning experience, and most of these learner motorcycles do have nice low seat heights because it's just recognized as being one of those important features. Particularly when you think about it, if you're buying a new motorcycle, you want to go into the shop, you want to jump on one, you want to have a sit on it, and it should be comfortable and it should definitely give you confidence. So you should be able to get your feet flat to the ground unless you're really short, and you should also feel like the bike isn't too weighty. Now the Ninja 400, it's 168 kilograms dry, so it is a fair bit heavier, but it also carries that weight very easily, so you don't notice that weight. It's got 45 horsepower, which is right up there on the limit for these type of motorcycles in most of the countries which have like an A2 license, or like we have here in Australia, the LAMS licensing scheme. And it's also got 28 foot-pounds of torque, which is available at 8,000 RPM. Now the Ninja 400 is pretty widely recognized as a really great option for those who are looking for a high-performance beginner sports bike. But what else is there available that's kind of a step down from that? Well, the obvious option is Honda's CBR300R. Now this bike is cheaper than the Ninja 400, but the specs reflect that in a lot of ways. It does have a slightly lower seat height at 780mm, however it's only got 30 horsepower and it's only got 20 foot-pounds of torque, so both of those figures are significantly lower than that Ninja 400. It's also 165 kilos wet, so that's ready to go, so it is reasonably lighter than the Ninja 400 as well. And the CBR300 is a really ideal beginner option for those who aren't after that really kind of maximized performance within the restricted category. It's a bit more of a relaxed machine. Moving on, if we're looking at something even smaller again, and in some ways more basic than the CBR300R, we've got Yamaha's YZF-R15 version 2. Now I rode this back when they were launched a number of years ago, and they're a great little machine. Only 136 kilograms wet, so that's the total weight with fuel in it. Only 17 horsepower, so it's got quite a low horsepower figure. Of course, it's 150 cc's only, and 11 foot-pounds of torque. It also has a higher seat height than both of these other options, so as something to think about, it actually is a bit more sporty, a bit more like a sports bike than the other two with that taller seat height, but it does have limited power. Now Yamaha have put quite a lot of technology into the R15 to make it still a really good option, because it's a very inexpensive motorcycle, and it will do highway speeds. However, one of the big issues for me is I always think that having enough power to safely overtake with, quite a bit of acceleration on the freeway is an important safety feature. The CBR300R here in Australia, where we have highway speed limits of 110, even that can feel a little bit flat right up at higher speeds, whereas with the Ninja 400 you've got a lot more oomph to overtake other vehicles. On something like the R15, you really do need to plan your riding a lot better, because you're just not going to have that overtaking ability. And I think what a lot of experienced motorcyclists know is having really good power to kind of get you out of some situations is quite useful. Obviously for learner riders that can just get you into trouble, so that's something to think about as well. However, with those three options, you've got the Ninja 400, it's got that kind of maximum power in the category. You've got the CBR300, which significantly more power than that R15, but again significantly less than the Ninja, and that is a really good learner option. I would kind of break it down this way. Ninja 400, like I said, maximum performance. The CBR300R, very, very easy learner option, very forgiving. It's going to be a perfect choice for people who aren't so confident and aren't after that level of performance. And then you've got that YZF-R15, which is really, really inexpensive. It's got a great value proposition, but it is much more limited in power. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of people, particularly here in Australia where you spend 3 years on a restricted machine, unless you're just running around the inner city on the R15, you're probably going to get to a point within those 3 years where you want something with more power. So obviously you could start on it, but if you're looking for something that's going to more fully carry you through that lambs period or that learner period, and you just want to buy the one bike and then eventually jump straight onto a full powered machine, I would have to say the R15 is probably going to be the most likely motorcycle you'll outgrow. But it's also so cheap that may not be that much of an issue for a lot of people who are willing to upgrade that particular motorcycle at some point. Now, as far as the overall specifications of these machines, realistically speaking, they are all quite basic. You've got a front disc brake on all of them, single disc, but braking performance is pretty good on all of these machines. It does vary from machine to machine, but even with a single disc, it's not going to be a problem. Like I mentioned, the weights do vary a little bit. However, apart from that R15, which is significantly lighter, I don't think there's too much of a difference that most people are going to notice. The suspension systems on both of those bikes are well balanced, as is the system on the R15, but what you will find is if you're outside kind of the intended weight range, that's when you'll start having problems. These are non-adjustable systems. You normally get preload on the rear, but if you don't kind of match what that manufacturer had in mind for who was going to ride that bike, then you will find that suspension is far less ideal. I'm not going to talk about the more extensive engine characteristics of these bikes. The Ninja's a parallel twin. The CBR300R and R15 are both single cylinders. But the thing to remember as a new rider is you need to pick the machine that's right for you. You might have friends who picked up the Ninja 400 because they're really into the performance side of things, but if you're not so into the performance side of things, definitely consider other machines. For instance, like I've said, that CBR300R, for someone who's got lower expectations, wants to save a little bit of money, and isn't quite so worried about, kind of that more sporty and maximum power for the segment, that could be a great option. As far as the R15, there are some other options in this kind of category. Probably the most well known is Honda CBR300R here in Australia, which is a real bestseller. And the thing to keep in mind is that's not a fared bike, and that's pretty much the cheapest motorcycle you can buy new in the country, which is definitely one of the big selling points. Anyway, if you're looking for a new motorcycle and you're just going to get started riding, definitely think about what's going to suit you. Anyway, to all those new riders out there, it's really, really important that you do your research when you're looking at buying a new bike. If you're buying a second-hand bike, I think in a lot of cases you'll just go and you'll see what's available, and that's perfectly okay. But if you're buying a new motorcycle, you want to do your research. You want to know exactly what's going on. You want to go and test all those bikes out. Very, very important. And then when it really comes down to it, you want to find a dealer who's going to do you the best deal on that particular machine, and that might take a bit of shopping around. Anyway, hopefully this has been a little bit of a help in breaking up kind of the model options available in this restricted and lambs category for you. And let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will be back soon.